That's contempt. That's 93. Keep going. That's another 93. That's another 93. That's another 93.
Got him. Anyone else in the car? I didn't see anyone else.
I don't think so.
Thanks. There's one in this squad right here. You sure you don't want him?
No, I gotta give it back to some golfers.
A pair of Florida men made national news headlines as the dumbest criminals of the week in October of 2020 when one of them made his identity obvious during a crime spree in Marion County. 41-year-old Robert Hobby and 23-year-old Marcus Reeves were in the midst of committing a string of burglaries in and around Ocala when surveillance cameras captured footage of them breaking into convenience stores. The footage showed the men smoking cigarettes inside the stores in plain view of cameras, but the security video wasn't the only clue they left behind. While leaving one of the stores, the thieves left behind a shoe, their burglary tools, and Reeves's wallet and ID. Police paid a visit to Reeves's home and quickly obtained a confession. He and Hobby were subsequently charged with 14 counts each, including grand theft and burglary. Records showed that Hobby was convicted of 2 counts of burglary of an unoccupied structure, grand theft between $10,000 and $20,000, grand theft of a firearm, and armed burglary with an explosive or weapon. He served 4 years and 9 months in prison and is on probation until 2039. Marcus Reeves was convicted of similar charges and is currently awaiting a release date from prison. Number 20. Kyis Glaspar. 19-year-old Kyis L. Glaspar of Indianapolis is facing 2 counts of murder stemming from the shooting death of 21-year-old Kyon Davidson, who was murdered during a botched robbery in June of 2024. Glaspar fled the city and was later captured in Gary by U.S. Marshals. Surveillance video of the crime appeared to show Glaspar approaching Davidson outside an apartment complex and shooting him point blank in the back of the head. He then danced around the victim's body in a seemingly celebratory fashion and proceeded to skip through the parking lot. Glaspar's co-defendant, 19-year-old DeAnn Jackson, was reportedly seen stealing items off Davidson's body after the shooting and is also facing a murder charge. He managed to stay on the run for 10 days before a SWAT team apprehended him in Indianapolis. In addition to being implicated in Davidson's murder based on surveillance footage, multiple witnesses were able to place Glaspar and Jackson at the crime scene. Additionally, shortly after the shooting, Glaspar made an incriminating post on social media, including a photo of police arriving at the scene along with a series of laughing emojis, and an informant told law enforcement that he had been bragging non-stop about the crime, further remarking, "He's a very dumb criminal." The case is ongoing. Number 19. Robert Acee and Michael Flores. Early one morning in August of 2024, a teenager named Michael Tubb was shot dead in downtown Albuquerque, New Mexico, and his friend survived a bullet wound to the leg. By the time police responded to the scene at around 3:30 a.m., the culprits had stealthily slipped out of sight. Surveillance footage showed a car pulling up to the passenger side of the victim's vehicle before someone inside the suspect's vehicle immediately began shooting at the victims and the perpetrators sped off. Investigators were unable to identify a motive for the crime and quickly began to hit dead ends, despite collecting footage from 75 cameras. None of the videos showed a license plate number, and detectives couldn't figure out why anyone would want to kill Tubb, who, by all appearances, was innocently hanging out with his friends when the shooters opened fire on the car that he was sitting in. Desperate for leads, homicide detective Jordan Moenart began browsing Facebook Marketplace for vehicles resembling the suspect's car. A little more than a month after the shooting, he spotted a car for sale with some of the same unique features that were seen on the vehicle involved in Tubbs' murder. Police traced the car to 22-year-old Michael Flores, and they were able to place Flores near the crime scene. Further investigation led to the identification of a second suspect, 21-year-old Thomas Acee, who also happens to be an FBI agent's son. According to authorities, Acee shot Tubb, then drove the Lexus that he and Flores had used in the crime to Colorado. The men left their phones behind to avoid being tracked, and Acee reportedly reassured Flores that they would get away with the crime, but he changed his tune after they failed to sell the car. And as they drove back to New Mexico, he began telling Flores that they might be going to prison for the rest of their lives. Both Flores and Acee are facing 1 count of open murder, and Acee is facing additional charges. Flores is free on an ankle bracelet pending the outcome of his case while Acee remains held without bond. Number 18. Renee Burke. In early 2019, 40-year-old mother of two, Renee Burke of Long Island, New York, was accused of trying to poison her estranged husband with antifreeze on 3 separate occasions over a 12-day period. The alleged attempted poisoning occurred at least twice in September 2018 in front of the former couple's young children, who recalled seeing their mother put something in their father's drink. At the time, Renee and her soon-to-be ex Matthew were in the midst of an acrimonious divorce, and Matthew had custody of the kids. Surveillance footage appeared to show Burke breaking into Matthew's Suffolk County apartment at least 3 times and pouring antifreeze into his wine and soda. After 2 of the alleged break-ins, Matthew immediately noticed an unusual taste to his beverage and spat it out. During police questioning, Burke claimed that she had added fruit juice to Matthew's drinks, but her phone contained evidence of searches regarding the lethal potential of antifreeze. Investigators also found a small bottle filled with antifreeze in Burke's kitchen, and she was charged with attempted murder, attempted assault, burglary, criminal contempt, and endangering the welfare of a child. On the day of her arraignment, she smiled ear to ear while entering and leaving the courtroom as if she didn't have a care in the world. Burke pleaded not guilty, but updates on the case have not been forthcoming, leaving the outcome unclear. Number 17. Darrell Jarrell.
No. I'm gonna tell you what. You don't come in. You don't. Okay. That's contempt. That's 93. Keep going. That's another 3.
During the summer of 2024, Darrell Jarrell went before Washtenaw County, Michigan Judge Cedric Simpson for a misdemeanor trespassing charge. Toward the end of the hearing, he devolved into an infuriated rant about how he wants to leave the state and how he wouldn't be extradited back to Michigan due to the petty nature of the offense. Jarrell ended his tirade by saying, "You guys could issue a warrant, and as long as I don't return you can just kiss my." His anger was reportedly triggered by confusion over his court date, stemming from his own attorney's inability to get a hold of him. Visibly unamused by Jarrell's words, Simpson began to say something, only for Jarrell to interrupt by saying, "You."
That's 693s consecutive.
It's trespassing. I could technically leave and you guys could issue a warrant as long as I don't return, because this is...
You know what? No. I'm gonna tell you what.
Simpson warned Jarrell that he had just committed contempt, a 93-day misdemeanor, but Jarrell repeated the profane statement several times as he was led away by a bailiff, earning himself 6 93-day jail sentences, 558 days total for contempt. In the meantime, Simpson moved on to the next defendant and maintained a pleasant demeanor, making it clear that he was unaffected by Jarrell's abrasive conduct. Number 16. Destiny Hawkins. In July of 2019, a 24-year-old homeless Michigan woman named Destiny Hawkins was arrested for stealing a police SUV in Ferndale and leading law enforcement on a high-speed chase. According to reports, Hawkins stole the unattended cruiser after she saw an officer helping a stranded pedestrian on a sidewalk. The officer didn't notice the young woman run into his brand-new Chevy Tahoe until it was too late to stop her, even though his dashcam captured footage of the brazen broad daylight auto theft. A good Samaritan who had witnessed the incident followed Hawkins until law enforcement caught up with her, sparking a pursuit that exceeded speeds of 100 miles per hour. Harrowing dashcam video showed the stolen vehicle avoiding other cars by mere inches as Hawkins recklessly weaved around traffic and across lanes. The pursuit ended outside Detroit when Hawkins lost control of the cruiser and rammed into a similar-sized SUV. She reportedly showed signs of possible mental illness during the booking process, leading to the suspicion that she wasn't in her right mind when she stole the vehicle. Hawkins was charged with auto theft and fleeing and eluding, and the judge ordered the case to go to trial. Records show that the case was discharged for unspecified reasons in 2023. Number 15. Joseph Moreton.
I can light what I want, bro. It's my property.
While responding to a complaint about an explosion and smoke In a Port St. Lucie, Florida neighborhood in October of 2024, officers crossed paths with 39-year-old Joseph Moreton, who was armed with a handheld flamethrower. Suspecting that Moreton was responsible for the disruption that had just occurred, the cops ordered him to drop the weapon as he approached them. Instead of cooperating, the suspect pointed the flamethrower at an officer who managed to grab it.
What are you doing?
Yo, don't shoot me.
What the are you doing?
It's a thrower.
Yeah, put it down.
Here, hold it.
No.
It's a thrower. I'm not doing.
And removed it from Moreton's possession. Moreton ran back into his house and refused orders to come out. He eventually opened the front door and shined a flashlight in the officer's eyes. Several cops tased the suspect, and he was taken into custody without further incident. Moreton was charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon and resisting an officer without violence. He pleaded not guilty and is free on bond amid the ongoing case. Number 14. Eric Slaughter. In July of 2024, a 38-year-old Florida man named Eric Slaughter was seen leaving an Ocala Walmart with a trash can filled with $80 worth of unpaid merchandise, including a solar light and a pair of shoes. Deputies soon caught up with the suspect, who reportedly lacked an explanation for his actions. Slaughter apologized and even offered to pay for the stolen items because he apparently had enough money to do so. He admitted that his actions were stupid and that he had tried swapping the price tag on the shoes with a 74-cent fishing bobber, but he denied knowing that there was a solar light inside the trash can. This was far from Slaughter's first encounter with law enforcement. In fact, he has an extensive rap sheet consisting of multiple theft charges and other crimes dating at least as far back as 2006. He had also previously made news headlines, including in March of 2021 following a foot chase with Marion County deputies. Slaughter was wanted on multiple outstanding warrants when he got caught driving on a suspended driver's license. He ran off into a wooded area but was captured after being tased by a deputy following his most recent arrest. Slaughter was charged with petty theft with 2 or more prior convictions. His case is ongoing and records show that his $5,000 bond was revoked in November after he failed to appear in court. Number 13. John Michael Wakefield. In December 2023, the Flagler County Sheriff's Office in Florida shared a photo of a wanted man who stole an entire cash register from a Walmart store in Palm Coast. The image showed the suspect, who was clad in a bright red shirt, clutching the drawer. An employee confronted him in an attempt to stop the brazen theft, but the suspect shoved the worker out of his way and fled the scene. The culprit eluded the authorities until about a month later, when police identified him as 43-year-old John Michael Wakefield of Wellington, using facial recognition identity. Detectives confirmed their suspicions while searching Wakefield's social media, which contained a photo of him wearing the same distinctive red shirt that he was wearing when he stole the cash register. Wakefield already had a lengthy criminal history, which included a previous 10-year prison stint for robbery. He also had previous convictions for drug trafficking, grand theft, grand larceny, and drug possession following the Walmart theft. Law enforcement tracked Wakefield to several places, including North Carolina and Central Florida, before finally apprehending him at a service station along the Florida Turnpike in Ocoee. He's facing charges of grand theft and burglary of an unoccupied structure for the Walmart incident, along with an unrelated robbery charge, and is currently being held in the Brevard County Jail. Number 12. Jay Conklin. While serving a decades-long sentence for crimes against children at the Stanley Correctional Institution in Wisconsin in 2024, 50-year-old Jay Conklin was accused of trying to hire 2 fellow inmates to murder the prosecutor in his case. He was already convicted in one case and was awaiting sentencing in another. When he concocted his sinister plan, one of the inmates came forward telling investigators that Conklin felt railroaded during his trial and that he was sour about the outcome of his case. According to the inmate, Conklin did research on the prosecutor in an attempt to determine the intended victim's address and identify his relatives. He accumulated 3 pages worth of notes on the prosecutor, which the jailhouse informant turned over to investigators. The second inmate that Conklin had tried to hire also came clean about the plot, telling the authorities that Conklin was pretty pissed off after being confident that he would win his trial, only for the opposite outcome to occur. He apparently believed that his mother had conspired with the prosecutor to take his children away from him and put him behind bars for the rest of his life, Conklin asked the two inmates if they knew anyone on the outside who might be willing to get the job done. One of the prisoners connected him with a man who he claimed was his cousin, but who was actually an undercover agent posing as a paid assassin. During a recorded phone call, Conklin instructed the agent to kill the intended victim before his upcoming sentencing date. He is now facing charges of conspiracy to commit first-degree intentional homicide and solicitation of first-degree intentional homicide. Number 11. Vijay Mannari. An esteemed Eastern Michigan University professor may have ruined his career after he was caught soliciting inappropriate activity with a minor during a sting in Wayne County. The bust occurred in Harrison Township, where 63-year-old engineering professor Vijay Mannari was confronted on camera by journalist Chris Hansen, who coordinated the operation with local law enforcement. Prior to his arrest, Mannari was the director of the university's Coating Research Institute. Footage from the moments leading up to his arrest showed him arriving at an apartment where he expected to meet a teenage girl. He could be seen immediately locking the door behind him after entering the residence. When confronted by Hansen, Mannari initially denied knowing that the girl he was trying to meet was a minor, even though the investigators who busted him claimed to have text messages of the suspect acknowledging his awareness of the girl's age and his intentions to engage in inappropriate conduct. Following his arrest, Mannari was immediately suspended from his job pending the outcome of his case, which appears to be ongoing. Number 10. DeAnn Parkin. Over the years, there have been plenty of stories in the news about people trying to hire a paid assassin through the parody website rentahitman.com. One of the latest arrests occurred in 2023 when 31-year-old mother of three, DeAnn Parkin of Ovid, Idaho, was accused of trying to hire a hitman through the website to kill a woman who was living with her ex-husband in Wyoming. According to federal authorities, Parkin blamed the intended target for having an affair with her husband and destroying her family. During her conversations with the website's administrator, she accused the victim, identified in court documents as L.A., of being a drug addict and an escort. She stated that she wanted L.A. to disappear to another continent or make her disappear completely where no one hears from her again. The investigation was taken over by an ATF special agent who reached out to Parkin to confirm that she wanted the victim dead and sorted out the details of the desired hit. After identifying herself by her name, Parkin stressed the importance of the police never finding out about her crime due to her fear of losing custody of her children. She told the undercover that she was willing to do anything to get rid of the victim, even if it meant L.A. being killed and buried 6 feet in the ground. The undercover gave Parkin some time to decide if she was really on board, and she took the initiative to reach back out and say that she was still interested in his services. She paid a $100 deposit and agreed to put up a diamond ring as collateral and was arrested immediately after forking over the cash. Parkin admitted to her crime and was convicted of solicitation of murder. She was sentenced to 7.5 years in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release. Number 9. Brian Garfield Fort. 21-year-old Brian Garfield Fort was wanted for murdering a man in Decatur, Georgia, when he dined and dashed at a restaurant in Austell months later in June of 2023. After running up a $100 tab with his friend at the Juicy Crab, he left his phone behind at the scene. The lock screen contained a selfie, making it easy for officers who were responding to the dine and dash call to identify him as a wanted murder suspect. A quick-thinking restaurant employee had snapped a photo of Fort's license plate, making the process of tracking him down even easier. Just hours after the dine and dash, a license plate reader picked up Fort's car in Brookhaven, where he was arrested and taken into custody. In August of 2024, Fort was convicted of murdering 20-year-old Joshua Quaintance during a confrontation at a birthday party. In addition to a felony murder charge, he was convicted of aggravated assault and possession of a firearm in the commission of a felony. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus 5 years. Number 8. Nichole Maks. On July 12, 2023, someone stabbed and bludgeoned 79-year-old Michael Carasoli to death inside his Daytona, Florida home and set the residence ablaze. By the time police arrived in response to a concerned neighbor's call, the killer had fled the scene and there was smoke pouring out of Carasoli's second-story window. Inside the victim's bedroom, investigators found 2 cell phones, one belonging to Kerasoli and the other belonging to his roommate, 37-year-old Nichole Maks. A short while later, officers spotted Maks at an intersection where she was armed with a hammer and a knife. She dropped the weapons. She wasn't wearing any shoes and had blood on her leg and a bleeding cut on her toe. Maks initially told police that she had been homeless for 4 years and denied seeing Kerasoli that day, claiming she had been hospitalized. She then changed her story, admitting that she had seen Kerasoli and then stopped answering questions and requested an attorney. As police prepared to take DNA samples from her, she requested a beverage. An officer handed her a can of Mountain Dew, and she proceeded to dump it over her head in an apparent attempt to destroy DNA evidence, but it didn't work, and Maks was charged with Kerasoli's murder. In early 2025, she took a plea deal and admitted to second-degree murder in exchange for a prison sentence of 34 to 75 years. Number 7. Danielle McBride. In late 2018, a woman identifying herself as Danielle Waller was arrested for stealing a package off the porch of a Goose Creek, South Carolina home. She was initially charged with possession of stolen property, but police later discovered that she had lied about her identity. Her real name is Danielle Marie McBride, and she had multiple outstanding arrest warrants. She was also a suspect in other criminal investigations, including the theft of U-Haul trucks in neighboring Kershaw County. Following the discovery of her real identity, McBride was charged with identity theft, providing false information to police, larceny, and conspiracy. While searching her vehicle, deputies found multiple packages that had been stolen earlier that day, and at least one of the thefts was captured on video, which showed a homeowner chasing after McBride as she fled the scene. Updates on her multiple cases have not been forthcoming, and it's unclear what she's up to these days. Number 6. Daniel Barton.
Okay, did you say your vehicle? It's from the vehicle 106, heading southbound on Holton Street. Lights are still on.
34-year-old Daniel Barton was awaiting trial for stealing a police car in 2023 when he was arrested for doing the exact same thing. Barton's initial arrest came in December 2022 when he was nabbed in Milwaukee for driving off in an officer's cruiser. He was released on bail after being booked on a charge of taking or driving a vehicle without the owner's consent, but he failed to appear in court as scheduled in February 2023. A warrant was issued for Barton's arrest, but he remained at large until early June when he was caught hiding in a gym after stealing another cop car. Barton had driven past officers in the stolen car while they were conducting an unrelated traffic stop. He was booked into custody on additional charges of taking and driving a vehicle without consent and 2 counts of bail jumping. Records show that the bail jumping charges were dismissed, while Barton received deferred prosecution for the car theft charge. This means that he'll have an opportunity to avoid a criminal conviction as long as he fulfills certain obligations set forth by the court over a certain time period, but that he could still face consequences if he fails to keep his end of the agreement. Number 5. Cody Michael Aaron Smith. Journalist Chris Hansen is best known for his role in the TV series To Catch a Predator, which filmed law enforcement stings targeting child predators, while filming an episode of a similar series called Takedown with Chris Hansen for the True Blue streaming network in 2023. He interviewed 30-year-old Cody Michael Aaron Smith, who was busted trying to meet with a teen girl in Ohio. Smith was more respectful toward Hansen than many of the accused predators featured on the show, referring to the journalist as sir and even shaking his hand despite being in handcuffs. He insisted that it wasn't in his custom to seek out minors and chalked the situation up to a deeply regrettable one-time error in judgment. But just 2 weeks later, he was busted with an underage girl inside a hotel room. Body cam footage of the second arrest showed Smith denying that there was a teenager in his room, but it didn't take long for officers to discover that he was lying. Records show that Smith was convicted of 4 charges, including endangering the welfare of a child and importuning. He's serving a 4 to 6 year prison sentence with a projected release date of April 2027. Number 4. Porter John Takedown. In November 2023, a group of 4 suspects stole an SUV in Plymouth, Minnesota, and sped recklessly down an interstate highway, striking multiple cars and veering out of control before striking a guardrail. in Glendale, Wisconsin. The alleged thieves fled the disabled vehicle on foot, including one man who hid inside a porta potty at the Lincoln Park golf course. Several golfers witnessed what was happening and sprang into action to ensure that the suspect wouldn't get away. They tipped the porta potty on its side, trapping him inside until police officers arrived. Elisa Boland, who was golfing with some friends, later told local station WISN that the witness who overturned the porta potty said it smelled extremely bad and that he could hear the waste sloshing around. She captured the arrival of officers on cell phone footage, which showed multiple police cars driving onto the putting green and surrounding the offensive-smelling toilet with their guns drawn. A man emerged from the porta potty in full surrender while making a comment about how he was covered in you-know-what, and one of the officers could be heard laughing at the unusual situation despite the unpleasant odor involved.
All right. Ready to stand up? 1, 2, 3. Thanks. Who's on this squad right here? You sure you don't want him?
Boland told WISN that some golfers were scared by the incident while others were eager to get back to golfing, and it's probably safe to assume that the pun was fully intended when she said it was a fantastic opportunity to be in the right place at the right time, even if it was a crappy situation for the kid. The identity of the suspects and the outcomes of their criminal cases remain a mystery. Number 3. Helen Hewlett. After a brief fling with her co-worker Paul Belton ended, 44-year-old Helen Hewlett tried hiring a hitman to have the 50-year-old man murdered. The two met while working at a frozen food factory in the English town of Fakenham and exchanged a kiss in his car. Hewlett proceeded to become obsessed with Belton over a 2-year period, begging him to be a bigger part of her life than he wanted to be while bombarding him with text messages and emails. Included among the unwanted correspondence were intimate photos and videos of Hewlett. Hoping to escape the stalking, Belton eventually got a job at another factory, but Hewlett soon followed and she began lodging complaints against Belton to their new employer, accusing him of harassment, homophobia, and racism. Belton went to the police, who told Hewlett to leave her co-worker alone. She initially obeyed law enforcement's instructions, but soon began emailing Belton again. In 2022, Hewlett went on the dark web and tried hiring a hitman to kill Belton. She took out 2 loans to finance a nearly $21,000 deposit and provided the website with the intended target's address and other information. Police arrested Hewlett after tracing the payments to her, and the contract killing was never carried out. Following a trial in May of 2023, she was convicted of soliciting murder. The judge sentenced Hewlett to 7.5 years in prison, followed by 5 years of supervision. Today's topic was requested by MadVW7WF. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Whitley Temple. On an otherwise ordinary Monday morning in June of 2022, an unclothed Chicago woman attacked a police officer in broad daylight. The cops encountered the suspect after receiving a report about her lying in the street. They tried to help her, but she charged at them violently and then stole their SUV, running one of the cops over as she attempted to flee the scene. The officer suffered non-life-threatening injuries to the head and leg despite being dragged along the pavement for several feet, and the woman crashed the SUV about 3 miles from where it was stolen. When the story broke, the suspect's identity and most of the circumstances surrounding the case remained a mystery, with police citing an ongoing investigation. Later identified as 35-year-old Whitley Temple, she was charged with attempted murder, aggravated battery to a police officer, vehicular hijacking, and possession of a stolen vehicle. During a bench trial in 2024, Temple's defense attorney argued that his client was in a psychotic state at the time of the incident. He described the situation as a textbook insanity case, and the judge agreed, finding Temple not guilty by reason of insanity on all counts. Following the ruling, the defendant was required to cooperate with a treatment plan but managed to avoid being institutionalized. Stick around after number 1 to watch our previous release about crazy people who took things too far. That's coming up right after this. Number 1. Curt Cox. Many repeat offenders are described as habitual, but 37-year-old serial car thief Curt Cox of Renton, Washington, earned the distinction of being prolific for his multitude of crimes. He had at least 40 prior arrests under his belt when he was apprehended in October of 2024 while driving a stolen vehicle and carrying a gun. His prior convictions include multiple counts of taking a vehicle without permission, attempting to take a vehicle without permission, attempting to elude vehicle prowl, possessing stolen property, and possession of a stolen vehicle. Cox had been a wanted fugitive for 4 months at the time of his capture. Investigators had been working diligently to track him down when they received some unexpected help in the form of a Crime Stoppers tip in body cam footage of the takedown that followed, which constituted his 42nd arrest. He could be heard asking what he did. An officer simply told him he was under arrest, but it was later revealed that he had stolen a truck several months earlier. Footage of the alleged theft appeared to show Cox getting into the truck and tampering with the ignition with what looked like a screwdriver, while the vehicle's owner visited his mother at a hospital. The video was captured by an employee who found Cox's behavior suspicious and began recording the incident with their cell phone. Investigators identified Cox as the suspected truck thief based on unique tattoos that were visible in the footage and other evidence, including social media photos which matched up with the image on his driver's license. Law enforcement made several attempts to arrest Cox, who escaped at least once by driving recklessly, before they were able to apprehend him. Cox was booked into jail with bail set at $115,000, but the defendant no longer appears to be in custody, leaving the status of his case unclear. After brutally injuring a man in August of 2016, 46-year-old Allison Sarah Moss and 49-year-old David Michael Webster both received life sentences the following February. A year prior, on August the 25th, the English couple were at Moss's Sheffield home. At the time, they were reportedly under the influence of both alcohol and drugs. A man by the name of Craig Wilde, who'd previously been involved with Moss, confronted the pair about threats they'd issued to a neighbor. An argument broke out which led to Webster launching a horrific attack on Wilde. During the course of the 15-minute onslaught, Wilde was punched, kicked, and stabbed with knives and a screwdriver. He was left with severe injuries that included the shape of an H that had been cut into his body. Police were alerted by neighbors who'd heard banging and shouting coming from the flat. When officers arrived at the scene, they found the victim's lifeless body on the living room floor beneath a blood-stained comforter. Webster pleaded guilty in November, while Moss denied her involvement. Nevertheless, forensic evidence on the woman's shoes and clothing confirmed her participation. She was convicted on February the 16th of 2017. The next day, Webster and Moss were sentenced to minimum prison terms of 24 and 29 years, respectively. Number 9. Leilani and Dylan Alkane. In the wake of a series of crimes committed over a 3-day period, a couple from Kailua Kona, Hawaii, were arrested in April of 2023. 27-year-old Dylan Alkane was identified as a possible suspect on April the 18th after authorities responded to 2 burglaries in the same area. 2 days later, a break-in occurred at a business on Kanalani Street, during which the establishment's glass door was broken and cash was stolen. Surveillance footage revealed that a grey-colored BMW sedan with a female driver had pulled up to the scene, after which Dylan was seen getting into the passenger seat. A few hours later, another break-in took place at Mamalahoa Highway in Captain Cook, where the BMW was observed fleeing the scene. After a pair of police chases, during the course of which officers were shot at but uninjured, the couple got away. An extensive manhunt was conducted by several law enforcement agencies from the area, resulting in the arrest of both Dylan and his partner, 35-year-old Leilani. The couple were charged with attempted murder, armed robbery, and first-degree burglary, as well as firearm offenses. Dylan's bail was set at $700,000, while Leilani's was set at $145,000. Number 8. Kelsey Ray Hunsaker and Jesse Marshall Davis. On the morning of February the 11th of 2018, Kelsey Ray Hunsaker and Jesse Marshall Davis, both in their 20s at the time, were arrested after 168 pounds of marijuana were found inside their van. According to the Sweetwater County Sheriff in Wyoming, the rental moving van was traveling eastbound on Interstate 80 about 6 miles east of Rock Springs when it was pulled over for drifting all over the road. A canine unit searched the vehicle, leading to the discovery of 147 vacuum-sealed packages of cannabis. Subsequently, the couple, who were from California, were held in custody at the Sweetwater County Detention Center on charges of possession of a controlled substance with intent to deliver and conspiracy. Number 7. Kimberly and Christopher Phelps. Around 162 dashcam videos of various road rage incidents and traffic collisions ultimately led to the arrest of a California couple. On March the 22nd of 2023, the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Office contacted the California Department of Insurance after a truck rear-ended a car that appeared to stop in the middle of the road for no reason. The driver of the car, 40-year-old Christopher Phelps, uploaded a video of the collision to YouTube shortly after the incident. Further investigation determined that at least 23 collisions had been documented by Christopher and his 40-year-old wife, Kimberly, who were connected to at least 17 insurance claims. It was also discovered that some of the couple's YouTube videos show their child in the vehicle at the time of the contrived crashes. Christopher and Kimberly were held in custody in lieu of a $500,000 bond. They were both charged with felony child endangerment and felony insurance fraud. Additionally, Christopher was facing a count of assault with a deadly weapon. 2 months later, the pair pleaded no contest. Christopher was sentenced to 3 years in state prison and had his driver's license revoked. Kimberly was ordered to serve 90 days in Weekend County Jail, 3 years of supervised probation, and a 52-week child abuse prevention program. Number 6. Wendy Stankham and Casey Brown. 37-year-old Casey Brown from Indiana was wanted on an active warrant when he threatened to blow up the police with an explosive in the Fort Ritner area. Officers attempted to apprehend Brown after he'd been spotted outside of a residence in the 4000 block of Fort Ritner Road on May the 14th of 2023. The man apparently ignored verbal commands from law enforcement and ran into a nearby barn where he barricaded himself and announced that he had a bomb. According to the Lawrence County Sheriff's Office, also at the scene was Brown's 44-year-old girlfriend, Wendy Stankham, who was very agitated and disorderly, telling officers that Brown was going to blow everyone up. 4 hours later, a SWAT team entered the barn and finally took Brown into custody. The couple were booked into the county jail for disorderly conduct. Brown was also charged with resisting law enforcement, intimidation, and possession of a hoax device. Number 5. Amber and Jamie Waterman. A pregnant Arkansas woman was reported missing, which eventually gave way to the discovery of her lifeless body in November of 2022. A month earlier, while looking for a work-from-home job, 33-year-old Ashley Bush met a woman named Lucy online and agreed to meet for a job interview at a convenience store in Maysville. Bush was last seen in a tan-colored truck shortly after 3 p.m. on October the 31st. That evening, 42-year-old Amber Waterman from Missouri reportedly delivered a stillborn child. The McDonald County coroner later said that emergency medical services were unable to revive the baby, which appeared to have been cut out of the mother's womb. The following day, Amber and her 42-year-old husband Jamie met with detectives at their Pineville residence. Authorities didn't find anything implicating the couple in any crime until the afternoon of November the 2nd. The Benton County coroner took the child following a memorial service. Upon hearing that the baby's body was to be given an autopsy, Jamie reportedly ran out of the funeral home. Warrants were executed for the search of the Waterman's home and vehicle, which contained bloodstains. The next day, after being questioned, Jamie told detectives that his wife initially admitted to killing Bush. She then abruptly changed her story and said that the person responsible was a woman named Lucy, the same woman who'd supposedly offered Bush a job interview before her disappearance. The victim's charred body was found a short distance from the Waterman's home. Both Amber and Jamie were consequently held at the Greene County Jail on federal charges of kidnapping resulting in death and being an accessory after the fact. As of the latest updates, the pair had pleaded not guilty. Amber was facing a death sentence or life imprisonment, while Jamie was facing up to 15 years behind bars. Number 4. Blanca Iris de Mari Escobar Roblero and Wilma Morales Roblero. Shortly after 7:30 p.m. on November the 25th of 2022, North Carolina teen Samantha Briggs was killed in a hit-and-run collision in Raleigh. Briggs was trying to cross Hillsborough Street with a group of friends when a white Hyundai struck her and sped away. She was taken to a hospital where she ultimately succumbed to her injuries. Following the accident, the motorist, 27-year-old Blanca Iris de Mari Escobar Roblero, called her husband, Wilma Morales Roblero, and told him what happened. The pair subsequently drove to Franklin County, where Wilma allegedly burned the vehicle involved in the crash. Local law enforcement spent months trying to find the driver responsible for Briggs' death, Finally, on May the 12th of 2023, authorities received a tip that ultimately led them to Blanca and 26-year-old Wilma. 3 weeks later, the couple were arrested and held in custody on bonds totaling $75,000. Blanca was facing felony charges of hit and run causing death and obstructing justice, while Wilma was accused of accessory after the fact and obstructing justice. The victim's sister told WRAL-TV that the arrest brought the family closure on the matter, but wouldn't bring her sister back, adding that the pain she felt was unbearable. Number 3. Crystal Halsey and Jose Jaquez. An Arizona couple set up a fake account on Tinder and lured a man to the Embassy Suites Hotel in Phoenix, where they robbed him at gunpoint. The incident unfolded on the morning of September the 17th of 2022. The man they targeted thought he was meeting a woman named Sonia, whom he'd encountered on the dating app. According to local outlet Fox 10, when the victim entered the hotel, he was directed to Sonia's room. There, he was met by 33-year-old Crystal Halsey and Jose Jaquez, aged 32. The latter had a pistol pointed at the man and demanded his identification, cell phone, social media accounts, and bank information. Halsey and Jaquez subsequently forced him to drive to a nearby Chase bank to withdraw $900. After taking the cash from the victim, the couple absconded to Las Vegas using the man's vehicle and stole an additional $2,100 from his bank account. 7 days later, they evaded arrest by abandoning the stolen car as police were about to pull them over. Meaningful developments finally came about on September the 28th, when authorities located the suspects outside a La Quinta Inn in Phoenix. Investigators had tracked Halsey using an online escort advertisement, which contained her phone number. The couple were arrested after a car chase that spanned over 100 miles and culminated in a crash in Happy Jack. Halsey and Jaquez were jailed on charges of assault, armed robbery, and vehicle theft. Number 2. Brooklyn Shepard and Michael Dayette II. In January of 2016, 35-year-old Brooklyn Shepard allegedly plotted to kill an acquaintance whom she believed was abusing a woman Shepard considered like her daughter. The woman conspired with her boyfriend, 43-year-old Michael A. Dayette II, to take out 29-year-old Jason Scott Williams. Shepard invited Williams and his family, including his fiancée, Chori Strait Corbray, and 2 of their young daughters, out to dinner on January the 15th. The family arrived at Shari's restaurant on 9th Street in Corvallis, Oregon, at around 7 p.m. Shepard subsequently asked Williams to share a cigarette outside in the parking lot. After they exited the restaurant, Williams was gunned down by Dayette, who'd been lurking behind some trees. Shepard was injured in the shooting while Williams died at the scene. Forensics from the parking lot ultimately connected Dayette to the killing. 3 days later, both he and Shepard were arrested and charged with murder and conspiracy to commit murder. Additionally, Dayette was charged with first-degree assault, unlawful use of a weapon, and second-degree criminal mischief. He pleaded guilty on July the 8th and was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 25 years. Months later, Shepard pleaded guilty and was given an 18-year sentence, followed by post-prison supervision, and was also ordered to pay $4,853 in restitution. Strait Corbray reportedly expressed her belief that the sentence wasn't long enough in a statement she issued directly to Shepard. The latter apparently considered herself to be akin to Strait Corbray's foster mother because of their closeness. However, Strait Corbray indicated that she never considered Shepard as part of her family. Number 1. Ashley and Michael Stroth. 34-year-old Ashley Stroth, along with her newlywed husband, executed a plan to eliminate her ex, Michael Heatherly, outside a Walmart in Bristol, Tennessee on September the 1st of 2017. 43-year-old Heatherly was walking to his car at around 3 p.m. when he was suddenly shot by Ashley's partner, 37-year-old Michael Stroth. According to court records, the Sullivan County couple fled the scene and destroyed the murder weapon. No arrests were made until March of the following year, when the Stroths were finally identified as the suspects. Investigators determined that the couple had researched how to avoid apprehension following the murder. 6 months later, a grand jury indicted the pair for Heatherly's killing. They were charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy. Both suspects were booked into the Sullivan County Jail on a $125,000 bond, facing the likely possibility of a life of incarceration. Thanks for watching. Would you trade 10 points of your IQ for the ultimate foodie perk? Free meals at any restaurant for life. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.